The one thing when I was reflecting about guided reading, I've taught for so many years, and I used to have students that would say, I can't read. And it really didn't hit me till I was thinking about this, but I have not had anyone say that the last few years since I've been doing guided reading, because they all know that they can read. It may be at very different levels, just the pre-A, beginning print concepts book, but they can read and they know it. So I think that is huge, that they all feel successful and know that they can read.
So the process of adapting our classroom instruction to the guided reading framework really starts with our priority standards, looking at what it is our kids are needing in third grade, and then moving that into teaching that skill during our mini lesson time. And so that classroom instruction whole group, we're talking about what that skill is, how to work through it together as a class, and then we get that opportunity then to move into guided reading. And that small group time, students are practicing at their level. We're working on that same skill that we just practiced whole group. We're then working on it together in that small group time at their reading level. And then from there, we then push it to that independent time. The goal is for them to be independent with the skill. So once we've worked through that process, we get to the independent practice, and where they get to really focus on, what it is they understand and how they process, what we've learned over the course of the time.
When we started our journey with guided reading, we knew that we needed to really have intentional small group lessons with our students based on their instructional needs. We were not able to have our small groups and do those intentionally until we got our field ready, until we could build stamina with our students during the independent structures. So our teachers have that opportunity to really teach to specific skills with our students as the guided reading table, and they're not interrupted.
So we're now working on really refining and honing our 120-minute block. We are weaving a common thread from our mini lesson, where our priority standard is introduced whole group to the classroom. We then take that thread, we extend it to the guided reading table, where that student gets that targeted, focused, intentional instruction at their instructional level with teacher support, and they're still working on that same priority standard. And then we take that thread and extend it out into our independent structures, where the student has the opportunity to practice now that priority standard independently. So it's that gradual release of responsibility that student gets. That predictability really has given us an advantage, because students are coming in the first day of school knowing exactly what their 120-minute block is going to look like.
When kids need more support, we have a very developed MTSS process, and part of that process is a RISE intervention, and RISE is the intervention piece to guided reading. And so in essence, what it does is it takes all the components of a guided reading lesson and expands them. And the great thing about guided reading is that the teachers do a wonderful job of those informal running records. They know exactly where the kids are at any time. And so if a kid needs more support, we can get them into that MTSS process, make a plan for them. But through those informal running records, on the reverse, if the kids are succeeding, we push them on. Our expectation is that as soon as they are mastering, meeting the criteria for a given level, they're on to the next. There's no more kind of just casting out a net hoping that we're catching these kids. We know exactly what they need based on what their data is telling us.
Every instructional decision we make is based on our data that we have on our students and our knowledge of our students, so that every single student is getting the individual instruction that that particular student needs. With that data, teachers are able to really provide that focused, refined instruction for each individual student, differentiating for every single student in their room.
Coming up now in early May, we have a readiness screener that we do for the incoming students the next year. And that's just another opportunity where the kids and their families can come in and they meet with the current kindergarten teacher one-on-one for about 15 minutes. We do a brief readiness screener. It's about 15 minutes, a lot of the guided reading assessments, and they get a book for coming from our wonderful Education Foundation. They provide them a book, and it just allows us to see the kids, meet the kids, and we already have data coming in and knowing who might need some extra practice right in August.
We also talk about the goals of our literacy block. And the goal for our kiddos is to become independent in reading and writing. And so we walk through, why am I teaching you all of these things? Why am I teaching you this skill? Is so that in the end, when you're reading independently, you're able to then use that skill as a framework for your reading and become a successful reader.
I know my students so well. I meet with them in small groups or individually so often that I have so much interaction with them, and I'm able at the small group table to provide that in the moment, on the spot instruction and help and feedback, and I feel like I'm truly just coaching them around the table.